morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is forgiveness and generosity. And before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to settle in. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen just flooding your bloodstream, flowing into your lungs, flooding your cells and your organs with wonderful, wonderful life giving energy. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress, toxicity, negativity. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, electrifying, energizing, and just beaming from inside out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any remaining stress, toxicity, negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Really softly rub your fingers against your palms, feeling the tingling and the tickling, and just become present right here, right now, to being here in this wonderful physical form. So today we're talking about forgiveness and generosity. And I'd like to talk about this in terms of ourselves first, where we're looking at self-forgiveness and um, and the generosity of spirit that empowers us to forgive ourselves and others. So um, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. Here's Maggie. Maggie is, good morning, Rosalind. Maggie was kissing the picture of me on the video that she's seeing. So it was really interesting. Anyway, when we're talking, uh, when we're talking about generosity and forgiveness, generosity of spirit is a compassionate kindness, a compassionate kindness. And when we are able to address ourselves with that kindness, then we can find a place of forgiveness for ourselves. And I was looking at the definition of forgiveness this morning, and one of the definitions was absolution. And I think I think it's interesting to discuss the notion of forgiveness as one of the other definitions was letting go of resentments. And so we can carry guilt and shame and self blame and resentments toward ourselves that forgiveness can heal. Now, forgiving something doesn't mean forgetting it. It doesn't mean not gaining the lesson from that situation or circumstance. It means a an absolution. It means releasing all the judgment and the negativity around that, uh, to be able to have an understanding. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. I so appreciate you guys being here. I can't even tell you. And Rosalind, you come every day. It's so awesome to share this time together. So uh, without forgiveness for ourselves and the generosity to forgive, without that, what happens is we hold on to resentments, we hold on to shame and guilt and blame, and we don't have the ability to learn the lesson and move on from that. And the idea with forgiveness is that it's a gift that we give ourselves. it is a generous gift that we give ourselves, because it then allows us to metabolize our experience more fully. So when we're experiencing shame and self-blame, what's happening is that we're resisting our experience in our lives. And as we resist it by judging it, then we don't have the ability to move beyond it. We stay stuck there. Rosalind says, I love our morning musings, our Mira and Maggie. It's the best part of my morning. That's so awesome, Rosalind. Thank you so much. Yes, and Maggie, she loves to chew on my ears. So I have these headscarves that, I like a sleeve kind of thing that I can put on my head. I just discovered this yesterday, so I can put it over my head and she won't chew my ears because she can't find them. So she's teaching me to be resourceful, and I just didn't want to wear the head thing while I'm with you guys today. Anyway, um, we're talking about we're talking about generosity and forgiveness, and so this generosity of spirit, that was originally going to be the title for this morning's musing, but um, I think that forgiveness comes in as a really important part of this, is that generosity of spirit is what allows us to forgive others, but even more importantly, forgive ourselves. Because most of us judge ourselves much more harshly than we judge others. Good morning, Dido. Great to have you here as always. So, the forgiveness and the generosity that is part of that is what allows us to, as I said, metabolize our experience, to really face our experience. So, for instance, if we're holding shame and self blame around an experience, then we're resisting the flow of understanding of life, of time, because we're staying stuck in that moment in a way that is constraining our energy, our life force. Good morning, Elaine. Wonderful, wonderful to have you here. So the gift, the generosity, the gift that we give ourselves and others of forgiveness allows us then to face the thing that we were feeling the guilt and the shame and the blame about, and to perceive it in a more neutral fashion, in a more objective way, because we're not resisting the pain of all the guilt and shame and blame. We're able to look at the circumstance and glean our lessons from it more directly, and we can then metabolize that, integrate it, move on from that, to move beyond it. Good morning, Tammy. Great to see you. Great to see you here. Thank you for being here with us. So, we've talked before about the importance of forgiveness, and so far today we're talking about it for ourselves, but we also get to forgive others. Now, when we forgive ourselves and we forgive others, it doesn't mean that we are condoning the behavior or the situation that we're forgiving. What it means is that we are releasing our resentments around those things. that we are gaining an understanding that is a hello, Hope. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. We're expanding into a broader perspective on a situation, less attachment to it, less reactivity to it. And as we do that, those circumstances, whether from ourselves or from others, have less hold on us. And that's the whole idea. And so this generosity of spirit that is needed to forgive is in itself giving us a gift of greater freedom. So I'm all about greater freedom. I'm all about ultimate freedom. And that freedom is a freedom from the ideas and interpretations and experiences that bind us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically too. Because if we hold resentments, if we hold guilt and blame and shame and anger, what happens is that is energy that gets congested in our body and our being, and it shows up as challenges around health, for instance. So by connecting to this generosity of spirit, what I think of when I think of that is open heartedness. And if we just take a moment to imagine open heartedness, I'm seeing an open flower, really. And it feels, as I feel into this idea of open heartedness, I can feel that blossoming. And what happens then is there's room to hold the fact that we all are perfectly imperfect. Elaine says, a beautiful moment when one truly feels compassion for oneself and becomes willing to forgive self and other authentically. I agree 100%, Elaine, that there is a profound freedom in that forgiveness. And again, realizing that forgiveness doesn't mean condoning something, but it does mean having compassion for the situation, having a broader understanding, having a broader awareness, and that open heartedness, that expansion is a part of the dynamic of generosity of spirit and forgiveness to become bigger than the attachment to the resentments or the judgments that wow excuse me, uh, that hold us small, hold us as being less than we have the capacity to be. So um, I'm just thinking where we feel that another has wronged us and there's anger and resentment around that, understanding that that anger and resentment is my experience, it's your experience, you're experiencing it internally. When we have anger and resentment toward another, we are doing violence to ourselves because it is energy that is congesting in our body and being. And so to allow that to flow, um, forgiveness is really not an act for the other, it's an act for ourselves. whether it's for, whether we're forgiving ourselves or forgiving another. We can, if the word forgiveness is too triggering, and I can understand where it might be, we can be looking at letting go of resentments, letting go of anger that's internal, because it's not about the other person. It's about our own interpretations. It's about our own judgments, our own perspectives. And most often, when we judge others harshly, it is because in some way there's a reflection of something external that threatens our sense of ourselves. So, for instance, uh, the when we get really annoyed at someone else for acting in a certain way, the things that really, really upset us are often things that we see in ourselves, or that we don't, or that we're fighting in ourselves, that we're fighting not to have, not to be in ourselves. So Elaine says, yes, we can forgive and acceptance without agreeing with what happened or is happening in the now. Exactly. Um, and so it's a matter of accepting what is, accepting life as it presents itself or as it evolves, and then recognizing the distinction between what actually happened and the way that we judge and interpret it. And when we can free ourselves from being right about our interpretations and recognize that they are interpretations, when we can free ourselves from the attachment to that interpretation, and often it is a matter of feeling like we're right, then there's an internal freedom that we're able to access that that grants us a bigger view, to recognize people see things differently, people experience things differently, and so much of the drama that we experience in our lives is as a result of our interpretations and judgments, and reactivity, is creating massive drama. And as we are willing to be more open-hearted, those judgments are not at play in the same way. They don't hold sway in the same way, and they don't control us. Oftentimes we think that by our judgments we I it's a way that we control, or we try to control through judgments. um, and when we impose those judgments on ourselves and others, there's a certain um, there's a certain violence to it. And there, I think when we impose judgment, it's the opposite of reaching for understanding. So to hold our judgments, again, I say this a lot as a working hypothesis, to hold our beliefs as a working hypothesis, and to be in a state of willingness to consider what those judgments are that lead to the resentments and the anger and the upset that lead to lack of forgiveness of self and others. So hopefully this is making some sense. And going back to this compassionate generosity of spirit, which is finding kindness and open-heartedness for ourselves. And as we do that, as we're able to do that for ourselves, that generosity, that gift multiplies, I believe, and gives us a greater capacity to have compassion and forgiveness for others. And sometimes maybe it goes the other way too. If we can have compassion and forgiveness for others, perhaps then it gives us a greater capacity to have that generosity of spirit for ourselves. So I think that forgiveness is a gift we get to give to ourselves and to others. And in giving that gift, it multiplies because it allows us to be more expansive and more open-hearted. And so it becomes this perpetual motion machine, this thing that keeps amplifying itself ultimately. So maybe we can look at the places where we've been unforgiving to ourselves, where we've held on to resentments, where we've held on to guilt and shame and blame. And perhaps there's a way that we can look at the judgments that we've held that have resulted in that guilt and shame and blame, and shine the light of compassion in those areas where we can just give ourselves some slack for being perfectly imperfect, and to realize that all of that stuff, the beliefs, the judgments, the circumstances, it's all feedback, because we're not here being perfect. We're here living, growing, learning, evolving, and we get to see our situations and our circumstances as opportunities to learn from the feedback that we get. And it's all part of this ongoing thing. It's not over till it's over, so it's not that we are fixed entities in any way. We are constantly changing and evolving. And so we get to use our experience as feedback, and feedback is just feedback. So Elaine says, yes, accepting the now as it shows up without seeing it as an attack on self, but a reflection of the fear held within, allowing the heart to open and heal. Love is the key to open a heart that's shut by fear. So I think you're saying something so profound, that fear is what keeps us from ourselves. Fear is what keeps us from being an expression of love. And love is an antidote to fear. So fear shows up in so many ways. It shows up as resistance to life itself. Fear, we're afraid of what might happen in the future. We're afraid of what people might think. We're afraid of so many things. And when we connect to the light that we are, the energy of love, the brilliance of our fundamental life force, then the fear dissipates. And then we have the courage to be able to experience and express more openly. We have the capacity, a greater capacity to forgive and release resentments, release resistance, and find that greater freedom. So I was I have to go in a minute because I have an appointment, a good appointment. But I was in a group yesterday where the woman that was speaking is a healer person who was talking about some trainings that she had taken, and in one of them it was from a shaman who was saying all it takes to heal is to let God in. Now, whatever God is to you, so it may be that divine light, it may be that deep experience of love. But as we fill ourselves with this connection to the universe and to this collective consciousness, when we fill ourselves with that, then it enlightens every other aspect of our being. So, on that note, I just want to say thank you again for spending this time together. It's such a gift, and I invite you to be generous of spirit with yourself, and forgiving of yourself, and allow that to bubble over into your connection and communication and relationship with others. And so, on that note, lots and lots of love. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. If you're new, this is Maggie, and she's here to hold the spirit too. And please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And until next time, much, much love.